Hey everybody, it's Mary. Welcome back to another installment of Color and Chat. So I wanted to talk about a couple different topics today. One was, the first easiest one, was the Premiere channel. Rather, the Premiere button, the Premiere look, I don't know what it's called. But when you go on YouTube and YouTube users or YouTube video makers make a premiere video, and so it tells you that a video will be coming in the future. I want to know your honest thoughts on the premiere feature because I'm curious. I have to tell you, I'm a YouTube creator, and I shouldn't say YouTube creator because I didn't create YouTube. I'm a YouTube content creator. I wish I created YouTube. Side note. I would go back to getting my dream car. Anyway, I am a YouTube content creator, and I obviously watch YouTube and I look for videos and I enjoy, searching around, and also you can really get lost in the YouTube vortex because last week when I was in Alabama, I was sitting there just fiddling around and looking on YouTube, and I was like, one video took me to the next video, and all of a sudden I went from card making to funniest bloopers on the news, which is hilarious, by the way. If you need a laugh, go search that, because that is funny. And then, I don't know, a woman who can sing in 15 different impersonations. Okay, so anyway, I'm a YouTube watcher, and I'll see a video that, of a card creator that I like, and I'll click on it. I'm so excited because I have time to watch it, and then it'll say, just kidding, this is a premiere video. So this will be back in a week. And I'm like, oh, blasted. So that's how I feel when I do it. And then I'm just, slightly disappointed, but not enough to be upset or not, unsubscribe from the person's channel or anything crazy like that. But it also is like a little letdown in my heart. And so I'm curious if you all feel the same way as I do, or if I'm just maybe slightly a little too excited to watch card making YouTube videos, because maybe that's my real problem. But anyway, let me know. Weigh in down below. I'm really curious about that. I, as the content creator, will probably not be doing that because that's I feel weird about it because if I feel this kind of way, treat others how you would want to be treated. So I don't really want to do that. I know that for live videos, sometimes I want to kind of let people know a live stream is coming. So that's a really good way to do that, so that you can actually have people show up at your live and talk to you. So that would be super fun. But anyway, weigh in. I'm curious. Let me know. Okay, so the second thing to chat about is kids these days. So this is a very interesting topic because I, A, have children. B, I was a child at one point in my life. And C, I work in an organization where we have young people coming in all the time. And so we will have, 18, 19-year-olds come work, and we have to, train them and get them ready and, just lead them and manage them and all those good things. And so it's a topic that comes up quite a bit is, this next generation, quote unquote. This next generation is this way or that way. And sometimes, more often than not, it's from a negative, connotation. So this next generation, what would they be called? Z? Listen, I'd have to look up and Google the exact years of what generation falls into what, but I swear I was not a millennial until I started working at this office I'm working at now, and someone told me it was 1980 and above, and or 1980 to 2000 something, and I am a 1980 baby. And so I was like, no way, mind blown. I'm a millennial, but I'm right on the cusp. Anyway, so I don't know. It changes. It's fluid, of what generation is what. But generally speaking, I guess it would be generation. So millennials are Y, and so I guess Z would be the next one after that. And then I think there's even another one that's coming up. God, I'm getting old. Okay, so the next generation, the new ones, their quote, I hear their quote, entitled. They're very entitled. They're lazy. I've heard that before. But they're smart. I've also heard that as a, positive. They're very smart. They're very technologically savvy. And so I've taken a couple courses on, training courses on how to reach that generation, the generation that's growing up in the digital age. Because if I think back on it, and a lot of you might be able to relate to this, we did not, the world we grew up in is vastly different. And if you are a baby boomer, you can go even 10 steps further. You're going to totally one-up us right now because, I hear of the days that my mom, when she was growing up, just some of the things that are so different from then till now. But I mean, just thinking about me, because I can only relate to my childhood, growing up, there was obviously no cell phones, no tablets, no computer in the house until I was 17, I want to say. And so, goodness, we couldn't even make long distance calls. My mom straight took the long distance off the phone. I mean, that was not even a thing. So if I had a friend who lived across the mountain, even though we went to the same school, I'll see you in homeroom because I can't call you. You can call me. I can receive long distance phone calls, but there's no calling. So anyway, there's, none of those things. We had 4 channels on cable, not cable, but eventually we did get cable. That was cool. We had VCRs. I could go on and on. Oh my God, this is bringing me down memory lane. I remember when we got because we had the regular telephones, landline, with where you had to go to the phone, right? And there was a little spirally cord that you can, but you're there. You're lucky if you have a chair next to the phone because that was a step up. I remember when we got the phone with the super long cord, and my brother and sister would take it from one room to the next, and it was mobile. That was a mobile phone. So you could sit in your room and talk on the phone all night, right? So, okay. So anyway, very, very different world that we grew up in versus now. I mean, back then in my growing up, in my youth, you just had to go without knowing things. If someone would say, oh, remember that song by the so-and-so? No, who sings it? You would just look at each other and you would be frustrated for probably 6 minutes. And then you would say, yeah, I don't know. Move on. We're moving on. Maybe next time I'm in the library, I'll look it up if they even keep records of things like that. Or else we'll just move on with our lives. But now, you don't not know things like that at all. At all. Someone could say, my sister said today, she was here visiting, and she said a topic they were discussing, her and her husband, she said, I had to research it. We had to research it and find the answer. And I said, and by research, do you mean pull up Google and type it in? And she said, oh, yes, it's exactly what I mean. It's okay. So you just don't not know anything. So going back to the actual topic, kids these days are growing up in an entirely different world where information is at their fingertips. They don't have to wait for anything. There really is no going to the library, spending hours researching things. I mean, they could type in something on a computer and boom, you have 15 resources. The only thing they have to do is figure out if they're legitimate, and there's ways to do that. But there's just an entirely different atmosphere. Even those of us that grew up without it, it's enticing. I mean, it's interesting to us, but we also have a frame of reference where we can look back and say, no, I didn't have that, and compare the two. But can you imagine now how kids are growing up? And I look at my children, they're 9 and almost 6 into the high school years where this is all they ever knew. This is just the life. So I have to take that into context of, okay, so how does that translate to their work ethic? How does it translate to their motivations and what they want to do with life and how they perceive the world? These are all just answers that I cannot give you in this color and chat. I don't have the capability, but I will tell you some of the courses that I've taken to get smart on this topic are really fascinating. I took a course, it was called Growing Leaders, and it was basically to teach us how to talk about leadership concepts and principles with youth. And this is from, age 10 all the way up until 19, which is normally 18, 19, 20. Those are usually the people that I would be in contact with. But it was highly focused on imagery. So you want to kind of relate to the youth in ways that they would understand, and the way that they not necessarily understand, they can understand words, but how it would sink in and stay, and how it would really resonate with them. And it was imagery. So, for example, I'll give you for example. One of them was, it was called, and everything was like a title. So you have a title, and then when you hear that title, it triggers back to what you think about and what the story was. So you would give them a title, you'd show them a picture, and then you'd tell a story about it. So I'll give you one today. Why not? Okay. So this one's called the Starving Baker. Okay, the Starving Baker. So you show a picture of a starving baker, and it is of a baker who's very, very skinny, and he's holding this big, huge tray of bread. And you talk through this concept of this starving baker. And it's basically, and I think a lot of you out there are probably going to relate to this, but it's about how you go through your life, you go through your daily routines, your daily life, and you take care of everyone else around you. You are making sure, if you are a mother or a wife, you're making sure everything is good to go. All things are organized. All things are ready. The children are set. Your husband is, your relationship with your husband is thriving. You're doing whatever you can to feed that relationship. If you're a worker outside the home, you are making sure that all your tasks are accounted for and done. You are trying to give attention to every single thing and every single person. Maybe you have family members that need you, or, elderly parents, or children that have special needs. There's just everybody and everything around you that requires your attention, and you freely and willingly give it to them. You are baking the bread for everyone around you, but yet you yourself are starving in a lot of ways. And I've talked about this in past color and chats that, yes, there is an imbalance a lot of times in myself that I have to be very cognizant of. But you have to make sure that you are taking from your stash of bread too, that you keep a little bit behind for yourself so that you're not starving. Because in the end, if the baker dies, nobody's getting any bread, right? So we just need to make sure that we are just aware of that. So we kind of talked about that in the past, but the point to that is, and kind of circling back around, is that when you're leading these people and you're, you've taught all of these concepts, all of these lessons, then as you go through your daily routine, let's say I have a young person I'm working with and they're just like hard charging, go-getter, everybody else is getting what they need, and I start to notice that this person is a little bit, maybe not themselves or a little bit out of energy, I can say to them, hey, don't be a starving baker, right? And that might sound funny, but that concept is going to then ring in their head. They're going to see the picture and they're going to remember the storyline. And so that concept right there of, teaching through imagery is just fascinating. So I bring that up because as a person who has been in my career for 20 years now, I can say that I don't necessarily believe or subscribe to the fact that it's this next generation is a problem, quote unquote. I don't think that. I think that seasoned generations, I'll use that word, that's a good word, right? We're seasoned. Seasoned generations have to stop and be aware of what they need to do as the adults, more adult, as the mature, of what they need to do to reach the next generation. Because you have to know, as things change in our world, that the raising of people is going to change and how they're exposed to things is going to change. And so if we know that, then we need to be able to speak our message the way they need to hear it, not the way that we want to give it. Because that's a moot point right there. I can scream till I'm blue in the face, but if that message is not received, I just wasted my energy and that person just didn't get what they needed. So I think that's an important concept. And also I think if you're one of those people that's just like, ugh, these kids these days, you kind of have to look at who's raising the kids, don't you? I mean, because who's raising the Generation Y or XY? Who's raising the Generation Z? The millennials. So I think that we need to take some personal inventory and say, okay, how am I raising this child that they're seeming entitled, or that they're seeming spoiled or lazy? So I think that's important, that we need to kind of, just turn the mirror on ourselves and kind of look at that. I think that's important too. But I also think, so if we have a fundamental understanding of the person, the generation, and we also know our part in it, I think that it's going to be okay. I mean, if you read articles written in 1960 by people who at the time were 50 years old, there's going to be a lot of similarities between what they were saying about the next generation or the young generation as we are saying today. So, there's that. There are parallels between the decades of people raising people. So, all right, that's all I got to say about that. I talked way more on this color and chat than I thought I was going to. Hopefully you found it somewhat interesting. Maybe these aren't for you, and that's totally okay. But this kind of color and chat thing is a lot different than just a regular card processing video, and it's just something to diversify the channel a little bit. So anyway, weigh in below. I want to hear your opinions. I want to hear if you think I'm totally off my rocker, because that's how I grow too. I need to hear other perspectives and things I'm missing. What am I not thinking about? So share that with us below. And until next time, I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.